4+ years, and Fred was is also the township trustee for Harrison Township, and he also served on the Plan Commission. And Fred was a great member to the board. He was very thoughtful and good listener, and made his own decision. And I may not have agreed with his decision all the time, but I thought his decisions were well-founded, and we'll miss Fred being on the board. So wish Fred the best. Not trying to sound like his eulogy up here, but Fred's alive and doing well, but just wish Fred the best of health in the years forward. If you would all care to join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all very much. The next item on the agenda this evening is the election of the officers, and I think we'll postpone that until our next meeting when we have a full board, hopefully by that time. The next item is the approval of the minutes from our last meeting, and our last meeting was in November. There is one correction on the minutes that were sent out to us, has been pointed out, and that's on SE-22-08 and the operating hours for that business. What we said during the meeting wasn't written down properly, but that's been corrected and shows so in our records for that. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes as sent with the one correction, please?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. I have a motion to approve the minutes with one correction. Do I have a second to that?
I'll second.
I have a second. Thank you. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all very much. Minutes are approved. We have a copy of the agenda that was sent out to us in advance of the meeting. Are there any changes, corrections, additions, deletions to the agenda this evening? Anyone? No? Thank you. Open for a motion to approve the agenda.
Make a motion, we do.
Thank you. Have a motion to approve the agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Aye. That's approved 3-0. At this point, we ask our board's attorney, Mr. Peden, to please swear in anyone who's going to speak. Ms. Heller, yes, Jennifer Heller and Robert Plummer, I have you signed up to speak, so you'll want to get sworn in here. Thank you, Mr. Peden. All right, under new business this evening, our first item on the agenda is public hearing D-23-01. Jennifer Heller is requesting a development standard variance to reduce the side yard setback for an accessory structure from 15 feet to 5 feet. The property is located at 840 Centennial Road in Green Township and is currently zoned for ag. And for this application, I have the applicant, Jennifer Heller, signed up to speak, and also Robert Plummer. I have no one signed up to speak in opposition or as a concerned citizen on this. So Ms. Heller, if you would come up to the podium and start out by giving us your name and your address, and then explain to the board what it is exactly you want to do, why you need a development standard variance, and why the board should grant this. We would appreciate that.
Okay, my name is Jennifer Heller. I live at 840 Centennial Road. I have a large pole barn that was put up about 20 or 30 years ago, and I want to add an extension onto one end so that we can park a horse trailer in there. And The reason we want to do that end is because the driveway comes up and makes a loop, and we'd be able to take part of that loop and then back straight into the pole barn. And it's really the only place on the property that'd be appropriate for that. I do have a little picture of what it would look like if I can approach you and show you this. Okay.
If you show that to us, we keep it. Are you okay with that? Okay, all right, fair enough.
But it's just basically a shell. It won't have any electric or plumbing or anything. It will match the other barn perfectly. Our neighbor won't be able to see it from his house, and he actually stores stuff up against the existing pole barn just on the other side of his property line, so. And he has a couple buildings that are very close to our property line also. So,
All right. Is that all?
I think so.
All right, thank you. Could you pull it, no, we're going to keep you up here for a few
Okay.
minutes. Could you pull that microphone a little closer towards you there? There we go.
There.
Couldn't really hear you.
Oh, okay.
Okay, got you now. Heard you,
Okay.
but not real clear.
Okay.
So why is it that you can't build this on another side, that you would need to put it on the side that requires a variance?
Actually is just off of the driveway. It's maybe 10 feet off of the driveway, and then the house is another, say, 10, 15 feet away from that.
And your neighbor next to you has no objections to this?
And I don't believe so. He's not contacted us, and we did send him the certified letter and explained what we wanted to do.
Okay, so just for my understanding, this addition is not going to be any closer than your existing barn, correct?
Correct.
The existing barn is already that close to the property line. You're going to add this onto the back end of your barn, and the side of your barn is already up against the property line?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. And you're not going to live in that RV underneath the,
No, no.
the addition on it? You understand that would not be permissible?
Well, we would not do that.
And it looks like your driveway would not allow you to put it on the other side.
Right.
And then we've got the neighbor's property line on the other side here. What's in that space right now?
A garden.
And you've lived there how long?
I've been there 4.5 years.
4.5. But you say the barn was built
I
many
believe
years
it's
ago?
20 to 30 years old, yeah.
Okay. And in good shape?
Yeah.
There aren't any trees on your neighbor's property nearby where this addition's going to be built, is there?
No, it's a hayfield.
Okay.
It's directly across from a hayfield.
All right, so nothing that it would blow over onto it, and then you'd be going to your neighbor saying, hey, you got to fix my barn?
No.
You chose to build it
No,
that
there's
close.
nothing there.
Okay, yeah, I'm looking at an aerial photograph, and it looks like it's just bare ground.
It is.
Okay. Gentlemen, any questions for the applicant?
I don't have any.
No.
No? Thank you. All right, thank you. Robert Plummer, did you wish to come up and speak? So, Mr. Plummer, if you would, the same for you. If you'd start out with your name and address and tell the board why you support Ms. Heller's request.
Sure. My name is Robert Plummer, and I live at 840 Centennial Road.
Talk to the mic.
Robert Plummer, 840 Centennial Road. And I'll just affirm everything that she said is true to start with. And we do need additional room for a horse trailer. This barn is existing, as she said, and by using one side of it, it saves us a lot of money because all we have to do is put a back on and a roof and one side. We're leaving the front open. So it makes total sense just to extend the existing building. And it is already that close to the property line. So that's all.
And you live there as well, right?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Gentlemen, any questions for Mr. Plummer?
No. The barn roof slopes one to the left of it?
It's
And the
a,
other two are,
it's a gable, going east and west, and we're gonna extend it west, so we're taking the exact same roof line and going out with it. The gable will be extended out as well.
okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's a good question. So once this is built and the rainwater off of this roof, how is that going to impact your neighbor being that close to the property line?
The same way it does today, because the 80-foot is already draining the way it's draining. We're adding 20 feet.
Is there a
And
gutter on that roof?
No.
No?
No, it's a
Okay.
pole
And-
barn.
And no issue with standing water back there that goes
No,
over
we're at a
onto your
very high
neighbor?
point.
I'm sorry?
We're at a very high point. There is
Okay.
no standing water, that's true.
Any other questions, gentlemen? No? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. So I don't have anyone else to speak, signed up to speak on this. Is there anyone here that was here in reference to this that didn't have a chance to sign up? Nope. All right. Well, this is a request for a development standard variance, and in order for the board to grant this, we have to agree that the applicant meets 4 findings of facts. The first being that the proposed use variance, and it says, describe the proposed use variance, the proposed use of the property. And Ms. Heller makes a note to see attached page where she has written proposed use variance, proposed use of the property. This is a proposed 20-foot wide, 40-foot long addition to the west side of an existing 40 by 60-foot pole barn. This addition would be used to store a horse trailer. There would be no plumbing or electric, just a metal shell open on the north end. The addition would tie into the existing barn in terms of height and length and have the same metal siding in the same color as the existing barn. The construction would involve placing poles and concrete pads in 7 locations, installing wood beam supports, and installing metal siding and trusses for the roofing. The roofing would have trusses every 4 feet. The front opening would have a support beam to tie across the open space at the top. Access would be from the existing driveway on 840 Centennial Road property. And then under 2.2, it says the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner, and the applicant indicates that's a true statement, and goes on to write, the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. Explanation, there will not be any features of the addition that would injure public health, morals, or general welfare. It is a storage area only. Under 2.2, the statement is, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. The applicant indicates that's a true statement and goes on to write, the extension would not be visible to the existing house on the adjoining property to the south. It would be alongside an empty field used for making hay. The other adjoining properties are at least 90 feet or more from the proposed addition, and it would not affect their property usage or detrimental visibility from their property. And lastly, under 2.3, the statement is a strict application of the terms of the ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property. The applicant indicates that's a true statement and writes, there is limited area in which to place this building where it could be accessed from the existing driveway. If this building is permitted, it would be close to the driveway and have access to loop in the driveway that wouldn't allow a horse trailer to be backed up into the addition and not have to be driven all over the yard, which can be soft and unpassable in winter or wet weather. This building would add value to the property as it could be an RV shelter or tractor storage for future use. To offset this building to meet the current 15-foot standard for space from a property line, it would have to be built over the existing driveway. A standalone building would also be more expensive and would require more walls since the existing barn wall could not be used for the east wall. There is no room to put this size addition at the 15-foot required on the south property line of the property. This addition would blend well with the existing barn and would not be an eyesore or an issue for adjoining neighbors. It would greatly increase the storage options for the property. It will be more attractive than a temporary structure or tarps. For technical reports, the health department states they have no objections to the proposed development standard variance. County surveyor reviewed and made no comment. And for staff's recommendation, they have written, the first finding of facts, ask if the reduced setback would have a negative impact on the public health and general welfare. The pole barn has existed for nearly 30 years in that location, so it's unlikely that extending the length by 20 feet would create a negative impact on the general welfare of the community. The second finding of fact asks if the approval will be adverse, or if the approval will adversely affect the neighbor's property values. The pole barn is a common accessory use in ag zone districts. Though the setback will only be 5 feet from the property line, the petitioner will still have sufficient room to maintain the structure without encroaching on the neighbor's property. It's worth noting that the neighbor to the south also has 2 accessory structures near the same property line, and neither one meets the 15-foot requirement. The third finding asks what practical difficulty exists that makes approving the variance necessary. In this case, it's more practical to expand the pole barn using the existing elevations rather than offsetting the addition to meet the setback requirement. For these reasons, staff supports the petitioner's request to reduce the side yard setback to approximately 5 feet. Question for Mr. Pede and Ms. Parker. The applicant writes in there that they have no interest in putting water or electricity into this, or that they will not put water or electricity into this addition. Will they limit themselves from being able to do that in the future by writing that in on their application request? Okay, all right, because I would think that down the road they may want to add a light or something in there. I'd hate to prohibit them from doing so if this is approved. Okay. All right. So, gentlemen, any discussion on this application?
It's like a win-win situation.
Okay. All right. I would agree. It's consistent with the area staff
It's not going any
points
bigger
out.
than the original barn, so other than the one side, it's gonna be the same color and everything, or as close to it as they can get.
Yeah, I would agree, and I think the applicant certainly meets the finding of facts required for us to approve this. Any other discussion? I'll open for a motion then.
Motion, let me read the statements, or?
Yeah, if you could explain your motion, that'd be great.
Okay, request made by Jennifer Heller, petition 23-1 for a development standard variance on reduce the side yard setback expansion, existing pole barn to property. And located at 840 Centenary Road, Green Township, Morgan County, Indiana. Motion is made by reason statement of the following findings and facts. It is true that the approval will not be injurious or public health to safety, morals, and general effect in communities because the reason statement in the staff report and the reason statement petition findings and facts is true. 2.2, the truth is the use of the value of the area adjacent and the property included in the variance will not affect a substantially adverse manner because of the reason statement and the petition finding of facts and the reason statement in the staff report. The following reasons, it's not going to be any larger. So 2.3, it is the restriction and application terms of UDO constitute a necessary hardship upon a property in which variance is sought because of reason of fact, petition fact, in the statement of staff report.
Thank you. I have a motion to approve with no conditions. Do I have a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Say aye. Aye. It is approved. Thank you, Mrs. Heller. Okay, next item on the agenda under new business is B, wishes to be heard. Justin Banks, on behalf of Sons of Thunder, is requesting a waiver to reduce the one-year waiting period following denial of his petition on November 28th, 2022. Let's see here. And for this, are we hearing Mr. Banks' request on this? Are we asking him to approach on that? Mr. Banks, I don't know if you got sworn, Mr. Banks? Did you get sworn in? I rose my hand and said yes. Okay, all right, we'll take that. Come on up and tell us what's going on and why we should waive our one-year waiting period.
Thank you again. As you know, my name is Justin Banks, representing Sons of Thunder LLC. My current residential address is 1613 West 300 North in Greenfield. And again, I think you pretty much clarified what I had written down to mention to you, was that the previous meeting where we had made the petition for a special exception was on November 28th last year. And the only other thing is the property that was in regards to is 4891 Galloway Road in Martinsville. So I'm just asking for a waiver on that waiting period. Really just two things. One is that, I know it's a small business, but there is a demand for it in the community, so I would like to ask you to consider that in giving us a waiver on the waiting period. And the second thing is that we won't be just giving you the same thing and asking for a different result. If you approve us to apply again, we will actually be, our primary focus of the application will be to address the concerns that caused us to get denied the last time around, because we believe we can do that. That's
Okay. So, Mr. Banks, you're not asking for this because you're claiming that the board made an error in some process or procedure in denying this?
No, sir. Honestly, I'm asking for it because, like I said, for two reasons. One is I think that I could do a little bit better job on one thing that I didn't really explain well, was limiting the growth on the property, because I think that was something that was kind of an unspoken concern, that we might end up pushing toward the property line or that type of thing. And just the other is that the concerns that cause us to get turned down, the main one being noise, that there are things that we can do to mitigate that. And so that will be the focus of the next application.
All right. Okay. Gentlemen, any questions in regards to, or for Mr. Banks, in regards to why we should waive this request?
Again, tell us why we should waive it.
Well, the primary reason is because there is a demand for this business in the community, and I believe it will be something that will be beneficial. And the other reason would be that the purpose of the denial last time around is something that we can do something about it. We can take steps to mitigate the sound, and that was kind of the main reason for denial the last time around. We can actually address that and take steps in how we construct the place. So that's why I said it will be a little bit of a different application, because we will be addressing that.
But to address that, we'd have another meeting, and you would come to that meeting, and the public would be at that meeting?
Yes, sir.
He's wanting you to talk on that.
I can sing. So if we grant it, you would come to another meeting, and the public would be invited to that meeting also to discuss noise and...
Yes, sir.
Other
That's my
issues.
understanding, is that's what I was told by the planning department, is that if you approve waiving the waiting period, that we would basically be starting a new application we'll send out notices all over again and invite another public hearing.
Mr. Crone, any questions for,
Well, I'm a little
Banks?
confused, I guess. I thought it was a perfect place for it, but the neighbors didn't think so, the roads, condition, and that type of stuff. So I think a lot of those people would have to come back to the meeting again also to state their reasons for it again. I don't know what to say.
Like starting all over again.
yeah, but we're not hashing that tonight. Just want to make sure
No,
we're
we're
on the
not.
same page with that. We're just saying, are we going to allow him to come back prior to, he can come back after a year, but our rules under the UDO say that if the BZA doesn't find that that the applicant meets all standards of the findings of facts, that we shall deny the request and provide findings specifying the reasons for denial. An applicant with the same request without substantive change cannot be heard by the BZA for 1 year from the denial. That's why I wanted to clarify if Mr. Banks was claiming that the board had made some error in process or procedure that he feels caused him to be denied, then I would say I'd be all in favor of this. But just because we followed procedures properly and heard his request and voted against it,
Right.
to me, does not entitle him to come back sooner than 1 year. After a year, I'd more than welcome him back, and he'd have to go through the same process that he went through initially with notifications to the adjoining property owners. But barring any error in procedure or something otherwise that the board did an error, I don't see any reason why we would have to allow this to come back
Right.
before the year's time. There's a reason why they set that, the standard of a year has been set. I certainly understand his points, and great things to keep in mind a year from November, should he choose to come back and readdress it. But at this point, I don't, in my mind, there's no reason to have it come back prior to the 1 year period. Do we call this for a vote, Ms. Parker? Any other discussion on this? Open for discussion.
I'll just make a motion.
Barring
That we should-
no more discussion, we'll make sure. Jerry, did you have anything else on this?
Just, is someone else looking at that property that you know of?
I don't know that we'd want to open that door, Jerry. I think we keep it to, should the board allow him to come in.
May I speak, but not to that, sir? So,
No, I don't think that's, I don't know that that's necessarily
That's
appropriate.
none of our business right now.
Yeah. But we're dealing with one issue. Should we allow you to come back?
I make a motion, we stick to our guns, and it's 1 year from November before he comes back.
Okay. So you're making a motion to deny his request to
Right.
come back prior to 1 year?
Till
Okay.
next year.
Jerry, did you want to second that? If
I'll second
not,
it.
I will.
I'll second it.
You'll second that. All in favor of denying Mr. Banks' request to come back sooner than 1 year, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Sorry, Mr. Banks. All right, moving along. Next thing on our agenda is staff reports. BZA attorney, Mr. Peden, do we have a staff report this evening? Thank you. Right. Ms. Parker, do you have anything for us for a plan director's report this evening?
We will have a meeting next month, so hopefully we'll all be back together again with full boards.
Thank you. All right, that's all I have on the agenda this evening. Anything else that matters we need to discuss?
Any status on Rumble?
After the meeting. Anything else? I'll open for a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Have a motion and a second on that. All in favor, please raise your right hand, say aye. Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.